And first I want to, you're going to bear with me while I draw some pictures. I'm not the best drawer, but I think you'll get the idea. Talk about the importance of our circulatory system, right? So this is obviously your blood is flowing throughout your entire body all the time, and it's the supply of information, right? Everything is information, from the food that we take in to the air that we breathe, and the hormones that are processed from all of our different pituitary glands, thyroid gland, different adrenals that are floating around our body and making it function the way it does. So the role of our liver is very important to understand. Let's pretend that's a little liver over there. I'll put an L on it so you remember. The liver is an organ located in the abdominal area that is responsible for taking all of our blood and detoxifying it or cleaning it out, right? So as I mentioned, those environmental toxins from our food, pesticides, herbicides, from our air, from the water we drink, the chlorine and the fluoride, as well as quite honestly, the largest percentage of internal toxins in our blood comes from our own metabolic waste, from all of the chemical reactions and processes that happen every single second of every single day, and our own hormonal output. So all of those hormones, like I told you, cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine, epinephrine, all of these hormones that are constantly flooding our body's circulatory system to make functions happen. The liver is the organ that is responsible for taking this blood in, cleaning it out, and then creating a substance called bile that it sends it out through. And bile is really important. Bile is, I'm going to kind of do a little blow up drawing here of, pretend that this is a cross section of an artery or a vein, right? So after leaving the liver, this bile flows through to hang out in what's called the interior part of our ileum, and it waits until we eat, because when we eat, also contained in this bile are enzymes that help us break apart our food. So when we eat, the bile and the food mix together and kind of mash up and have a little party, and bile loves soluble fiber. So when we eat foods that contain soluble fiber, bile and fiber stick together, like they get married and they're never going to leave each other. They are like glue. And they stick together, and the great reason that that is so helpful is because fiber can never cross back through the blood barrier. It cannot cross the intestinal lining. So once your bile with all of that excess garbage that I talked about sticks to soluble fiber, it can't go back into the body through the blood supply. It can't be reabsorbed. It has to then move a different path and go out of the body in the form of a bowel movement. So when we have consistent, Dr. Oz always talks about your poop and how important it is, and it really is, and this is why. When you have consistent, solid, regular, dark colored poops or bowel movements, that is when you know that you have bile that's bound with fiber and leaving the body. One thing to look out, and it's a big aha, is if you have a child that is struggling with some type of food allergy or gluten intolerance, and you happen to look at their bowel movements and they're light colored, that is a first red flag, because bile is dark in color. So if their bowel movements are very light colored, then chances are a lot of this bile that is creating all of the toxins and all the garbage from the liver is not ever exiting the body. So what happens if we don't have that consistent and frequent amounts of soluble fiber? Well, for some people, up to 95% of the bile that is containing the garbage, after it leaves our liver, it goes down and it gets reabsorbed back into the blood supply. And this is where it's important to understand how it impacts allergies and inflammation. I'm going to have a little, let's see here, we'll do a little color blue. There are some particles that float through our body known as antigens. So these are things that are dead, no longer a threat, just kind of the body's immune system is able to look at that and say, oh, that's just an antigen, that's something old and garbage, it's going to go to the liver, it's going to be placed into the bile, and it'll leave the body. I don't have to do anything to that, don't have to worry, it's not dangerous. And then there are other things that are called allergens. Let's give those the little red guys. So when allergens start to float through our blood supply, it kind of puts our body's immune system on high alert. your immune system says, well, wait a second, these allergens are things that could become dangerous if they start to multiply in number. And allergen is something that it thinks has the potential to continue to grow. So allergen can cause a triggered response, meaning it causes inflammation or it causes an allergic reaction, some type of response to signal, hello, we got to do something here because this is a severe problem. So let's go back to the liver example. If we have a scenario where a person is eating foods, but those foods unfortunately do not contain soluble fiber or not high enough amounts of soluble fiber, then when this bile is created carrying all the toxins and all the garbage that's supposed to leave the body, all of these pieces and particles that are floating through our blood that are supposed to be out to the toilet, they get dumped right back in. So the next time it recirculates, guess what happens? We have some more of these start to show up and some more allergens start to show up. And then pretty soon the body's immune system might get confused and say, wait a second, I thought these were all antigens. They're not really a threat, but maybe I was wrong because they just keep multiplying. Maybe those really are a threat. So now this is where you get massive inflammation and massive allergic reaction. When those particles and those pieces just keep reappearing instead of leaving the body through the form of a bowel movement, that causes an inflammatory response in the body. So this may be surprising for some people, but I want you to know, I personally know of people that have been able to heal completely from celiac disease and are able to eat wheat and gluten products, or even anaphylactic peanut allergies that were life-threatening, and now in due time, once things balance, are able to eat peanuts and tree nuts and other things with no problem. So I want to kind of put that glimmer of hope out there that there is a possibility of really over time finding a way to balance the body so that this is cleaned up and all of that stuff is removed from the body. And then we're going to get into this next piece, the nervous system, how that impacts our immune function and how it will help our immune system correctly identify true dangers and those that really don't cause a substantial threat to our survival. So I hope this piece was helpful. The takeaway from this is what contains soluble fiber, right? So you're saying, okay, Amanda, you're telling me that soluble fiber is going to provide this cleansing, detoxifying ability for my liver to produce bile, which will bind with the fiber and then exit the body in the form of a bowel movement. Absolutely. What foods contain fiber? Well, we all know fruits and vegetables contain some fiber, and they are definitely healthy to eat. However, the amount of fruits and vegetables that would have to be consumed to have really material amounts of soluble fiber is very large. So like a bathtub full of fruits and vegetables in a day. That's not very likely for most people, especially children. So some foods to think about adding into your routine way of eating are legumes. I'm going to put them over here. Or beans. So beans are actually, per size, the highest percentage of soluble fiber than any other food. So eating beans, any kind of beans, kidney beans, black beans, garbanzo beans, pinto beans, cannelli beans, lentils, all of these beans, and you can pick which variety works with you. Even get creative and use things like bean flour when you're baking. Fava bean flour, garbanzo bean flour I've used in pancake mixes and stuff. Beans, also seeds contain chia seeds and flax seeds. Those are great sources of soluble fiber. So whenever possible, if you can help increase the soluble fiber in your child's daily eating, and multiple times a day if possible, that's even better. That's going to help clear out all of this buildup in their blood supply, in their circulatory system.